My name is Celeste Rowan. I'm 32 years old. That Friday night, I was sitting on the hardwood floor of my Boise apartment, folding my camping gear into neat piles. My tent smelled faintly of pine sap from the last trip, and I'd just triple checked the zipper seams when my phone buzzed. I expected a text from Sarah or Jake about our hiking route through Sawtooth National Forest, but the screen froze me in place. Mom, come to Idaho Falls for Thanksgiving. We miss you. For a moment, the words looked fake, like someone had borrowed her phone. Mom never texted like that. Short, formal, punctuated. Her usual messages were reminders about flu shots or grocery coupons, not "we miss you." I leaned back against the couch, the city lights slanting in through my window. For 2 years, I hadn't set foot in my parents' house. The last holiday I went to, my brother lit up the room like he owned it, talking about real estate ventures while Mom and Dad hung on his every word. I remember sitting there, nodding, smiling, my stories about work ignored like background noise. Growing up, it was always like that. Nathan, the golden boy, captain of the football team, reckless charm dripping off him like cologne. I was the quiet one, staying up late, calculating tips from my waitressing job, saving every dollar for college. Mom used to sigh, "You're so responsible, Celeste." But it never sounded like praise. It sounded like duty, like weight. I stared at the text again, my pulse quickening. Why now? Why me? I tried to focus on the tent, on the clean map edges under my palm. But memories slipped in, rolling pie dough with Mom, Dad's corny Thanksgiving jokes, Nathan tossing footballs in the yard while I watched from the window, wishing someone would notice me too. I called Sarah, my voice thinner than I wanted. "You're ditching us?" she teased. "For them?" I think I have to," I said. "Celeste," her tone sharpened. "They don't deserve you, not after everything." I laughed, brittle. "Maybe they've changed. Or maybe they just remembered your bank account exists." Her words landed too close to the bone, but I brushed them off with a joke. Still, her warning followed me like a shadow. I texted back, "I'll be there." Mom sent a heart emoji. It should have warmed me, but instead it felt rehearsed. As I unpacked the camping gear, a knot twisted in my stomach. I could already see the Thanksgiving table. Turkey, pie, laughter that wasn't meant for me. I pictured Dad's loud voice, Mom's smile stretched too wide, Nathan's grin with just a little too much teeth. And beneath all of it, a question beating steady in my chest. Why did they really want me there? When I finally zipped up my overnight bag and laid it by the door, the air in my apartment felt heavy, as though the walls themselves were warning me not to go. But I ignored it. I wanted, no, needed, to believe in the possibility of something different. A family moment, a sliver of belonging. By Sunday afternoon, I was driving down the long stretch of highway to Idaho Falls, the November sky bruised with clouds. My gifts sat in the passenger seat, a bottle of wine for Dad, a silk scarf for Mom, and a finance book for Nathan's wife, chosen carefully, maybe too carefully, as if approval could be purchased. Every mile closer, the unease sharpened. Mom's text looped in my head, her words so clean, so unlike her. My gut told me it was bait. But I kept driving anyway. The late November air hit sharp as I stepped out of my car in Idaho Falls. The driveway looked the same as always, patched asphalt with the faint oil stain where Dad's old truck used to sit. The house stood there like a photograph, white siding, porch light glowing warm against the dark sky, but it felt staged, like a memory someone had polished too much. The door opened before I could knock. Dad wrapped me in a hug so tight it knocked the air from me. "You made it," he boomed, his voice louder than I remembered. His cologne had changed, spicy, artificial, almost trying too hard. Mom appeared right behind him, taking my coat with a smile that was a little too bright, a little too rehearsed. "It's been too long, sweetheart." She draped my scarf gift over her shoulders immediately, her fingers smoothing the silk like it had already been waiting for her. The house smelled of roasted turkey and cinnamon, a scent that clutched at me with old memories. Pie dough, laughter, moments I used to think meant something. I wanted to let myself fall into it, but the edges felt off, the warmth too carefully arranged. Nathan was by the fireplace, his grin wide enough to show every tooth. "Hey, sis," he said, clapping me on the shoulder like we were teammates instead of siblings. His wife Mariah gave me a polite nod, her eyes scanning me with quick efficiency, like she was tallying numbers in her head. "I brought gifts," I said, handing over the bag. Dad admired the wine with a low whistle. Mom kissed the scarf against her cheek. Mariah flipped through the finance book, a thin smile curling. Thoughtful, she said, her voice clipped. It sounded less like thanks and more like evaluation. We moved to the dining room. The table was set with Mom's best china, golden turkey glistening under the chandelier, potatoes piled high, green beans dressed with almonds. The spread was picture perfect, and yet, as I sat down, I felt like a guest in someone else's home. At first, the questions were harmless. "How's work?" Mom asked, spooning potatoes onto my plate. "Busy," I said, trying to keep it light. "You must be doing well," Dad chimed in, almost too quickly. "That apartment in Boise, still yours?" I nodded, swallowing. "Still mine." Mariah leaned in, casual but sharp. "Boise's not cheap. You must have a nice cushion saved up." Her eyes flicked over me, not unkind but calculating. Something cold slid into my chest. I forced a laugh. "I'm careful with money, that's all." Nathan cut in, grinning. "Always were the smart one, huh?" But it didn't sound like praise. It sounded like measurement. Conversation shifted, but every path circled back to me. My salary, my routines, my savings. Mom's questions were syrupy, too eager. "You've always been so responsible. We're proud of you, Celeste." Her words were warm on the surface, but the way her gaze clung to me felt like she was waiting for an answer I hadn't given yet. Nathan launched into his usual monologue about his latest real estate project. A game changer, he called it, spreading his arms like he was pitching to investors. Dad laughed loudly. Mom nodded with glossy-eyed pride, but I noticed Mariah's eyes flicking toward me again and again, as though she was gauging my reactions instead of her husband's story. I stabbed at my turkey, my appetite dissolving. The air around the table thickened with every forced laugh, every two-pointed question. My gifts sat stacked neatly on the sideboard, glowing like props in a play. I realized then what the whole night felt like, a setup. Their warmth, their attention, their questions. It wasn't about reconnecting. It was about something else entirely, something they hadn't spoken yet but were circling closer to with every glance, every smile stretched too wide. And I knew deep in my gut that when it came, it wouldn't be a gift at all. After dinner, we drifted into the living room. The fireplace crackled, throwing shadows across the walls. My gifts sat on the sideboard, untouched now, like they'd already served their purpose. Mom carried a small, neatly wrapped box to me. Her smile was thin, stretched like brittle glass. "Your turn," she said. I hesitated, fingers brushing the ribbon. It was too light, too deliberate. My chest tightened. "Go on," Dad urged, his voice too calm, too steady, like he was waiting for a cue in a play. I tore the paper, unfolded the lid. Inside was a single folded sheet. The room leaned in as I opened it. My eyes scanned the black print, and my stomach dropped. Bank notice, balance due, $250,000. Debtor, Nathan Rowan. "What is this?" My voice cracked low, sharp, like I was afraid of the answer. Dad leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Your brother's business. It didn't work out. He owes. We need you to cover it." Silence roared in my ears. The words felt like a punch. Nathan sat there, jaw clenched. The charm drained from his face. I looked at Mom. You, what? You want me to pay his debt?" "You're doing so well, Celeste," she said softly, almost soothing, but her eyes glittered with something colder. "You've always been the responsible one. This is what families do." Mariah's voice cut in, cool as glass. "You can afford it. I know." The room spun. "What do you mean you know?" Her lips barely curved. "I work at the bank. I've seen your accounts." The violation hit me harder than the debt itself. My chest burned. "You went through my savings?" "You've got $700,000 sitting there," she said matter-of-factly, as if announcing the weather. $250. It won't even dent your life." The paper shook in my hands. "That's mine. Mine! I worked for every cent of that." Nathan finally spoke, voice strained, frustration leaking through. "Come on, sis. It's just money. We're family. You can't let us drown here." I snapped my gaze at him. "You think I'm your lifeboat? After years of you blowing money like it grows on trees? No." Dad's voice hardened. "You've got the means. What kind of daughter lets her family fall apart when she could stop it?" My throat tightened, not with guilt, but with rage. Their words weren't requests. They were chains. They hadn't invited me home for love. They'd brought me here for a transaction. I pressed the paper back into the box, my hands trembling but my voice steady. "I'm not paying it." The air in the room froze. Nathan's smile vanished, replaced with something raw, almost hateful. Mariah's eyes narrowed into knives. Mom's lips parted, her breath catching, but her expression hardened fast. Dad leaned back, jaw grinding, as though bracing himself for the explosion to come. And I knew in that second there was no going back. The silence after my refusal stretched until it hurt. The only sound was the fireplace crackling, like the room itself was holding its breath. Dad's chair screeched against the hardwood as he stood, his hands clenched white around his wineglass. His face had gone red, veins pulsing at his temple. "You ungrateful child," he spat. "After everything we've given you." "Given me?" My voice rose, trembling but sharp. "You've never given me anything except expectations. Every dollar I have, I earned without you. And now you want to bleed me dry for his mess?" Nathan bristled. "You think you're better than us?" His voice cracked, the charm stripped away, revealing something jagged underneath. "It's just money, Celeste. Stop acting like it's blood." My pulse thundered in my ears. "It is blood. Mine." Then Dad's rage snapped. In one motion, he hurled the wineglass at me. The liquid struck first, a cold, stinging slap across my face, before the glass shattered against the floor. Red spread across my sweater, soaking through, dripping down my chin. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The room gasped. Mom's hand flew to her mouth, but her eyes didn't soften. They hardened. She rose to her feet, her voice icy. "If you won't help your brother, you're not welcome here." My chest constricted. I searched her face for even a flicker of hesitation, of love, but there was none. Nathan looked away, jaw tight, shame etched into the lines of his face. Mariah's lips twitched into the faintest smirk, as if she'd been waiting for this moment. Grandpa sat quietly in the corner, his cane resting by his chair. He hadn't spoken all night, but his eyes were sharp, burning through the silence like coals. Watching, waiting. I wiped the wine from my face with the back of my sleeve, the fabric now stained like blood. My hands shook, but my voice came out low and steady, cutting through the thick air. "You're choosing him over me. Again. After everything I've carried, after everything I've sacrificed, you'd rather throw me out than admit he's the one who failed." Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. Dad's fists trembled at his sides. The betrayal burned hotter than the wine soaking my clothes. For years, I'd been the responsible one, the silent fixer. Tonight, they'd finally confirmed what I'd always known. I wasn't a daughter. I was a bank account with a pulse. I grabbed my coat from the chair, movement sharp, deliberate. My voice cracked the silence one last time. "You don't get to use me anymore. Not for him, not for you, not for anyone." Nathan surged forward as if to stop me, but I cut him off with a glare so sharp it froze him in place. Mariah crossed her arms, her gaze cold, calculating. "Selfish," she hissed. "You'll regret this." But I didn't. I turned, my wet sweater clinging to my skin, the sharp smell of wine thick in my nose. The front door creaked as I yanked it open, the November air knifing against me. Behind me, the living room pulsed with silence. Dad's rage, Mom's judgment, Nathan's shame, Mariah's contempt, and Grandpa's eyes, unblinking, filled with something I couldn't name yet. I stepped out, slammed the door, and for the first time in years, I wasn't their scapegoat. I was free. The door slammed behind me, but the echo still rang in their living room like a verdict. I was gone, wine-soaked and trembling, but the silence I left behind pressed down heavier than the walls themselves. Grandpa shifted in his chair, the leather groaning under his weight. His cane tapped once on the floor. For most of the evening, he'd sat like a shadow, watching, listening. Now, his presence filled the room. "I've had enough," he said. His voice was low but sharp, cutting cleaner than Dad's shouting ever could. Dad stiffened, his fists still curled. "This isn't your concern, Dad." Grandpa's eyes blazed. "Don't you dare. I raised you better than this. Lying, scheming, throwing your daughter out like trash to cover for him?" He jabbed his cane toward Nathan, whose face paled. Nathan tried to stammer. It was a startup. Bad luck. Markets." "Don't you feed me that," Grandpa snapped. His cane struck the floor again. "I saw the transactions in the family account. Casinos in Nevada, a BMW, flights to Paris. That's where the $250,000 went. Not a startup. Gambling, cars, luxury." Mom gasped, her face draining of color. "Dad, you don't—" "I do know," he barked, silencing her. His hand shook with anger, but his voice was steady. "And you He turned toward Mariah, his gaze slicing through her composure. You knew. You checked Celeste's accounts at the bank. You thought you could corner her, guilt her, strip her savings to fix this mess. Mariah's mask cracked, her lips parting soundlessly before pressing into a hard line. Dad tried again, his voice brittle. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Grandpa's voice trembled, thick with fury. You stood by while your son burned money like kindling, and when the fire got too high, you decided to sacrifice the only child who ever did right by you. The weight of his words sank into the room. No one spoke. Nathan stared at the floor. Mom's hands trembled in her lap. Dad's chest heaved with quiet rage. Mariah sat frozen, her jaw tight. Grandpa pulled his phone from his pocket with deliberate fingers. She deserves to know the truth. The living room stilled as he dialed. The ringing tone cut through the silence. Halfway down the highway back to Boise, my phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Grandpa's name lit the screen. My hands tightened on the wheel before I pulled over, the November air fogging against the windshield. Grandpa? My voice cracked. His voice was heavy but steady. Celeste, you need to know what your brother really did. And then he told me. Every detail. The casinos, the cars, the trips, the collusion between Dad and Nathan to disguise it as a failed business, Mariah combing through my savings at the bank, their plan to lure me home, trap me with guilt, and drain everything I'd built. My breath came in short, sharp bursts, my hand pressed against my chest as though it could hold the pieces of me together. They lied, I whispered. They betrayed you, Grandpa said. His voice cracked, but steadied again. And they'll keep doing it if you let them. Don't you dare let them. Tears blurred my vision, hot against my frozen skin. Why didn't you stop them before? I thought they'd come to their senses, he admitted quietly. But tonight, I saw who they really are. You needed to hear it from me, not them. I closed my eyes, the steering wheel cool under my palms. The lies, the manipulation, the setup, it all crystallized into clarity so sharp it hurt. They're not desperate, I said. My voice shook with rage, but underneath it was something steadier. They're deceitful. The line went quiet for a moment. Then Grandpa said softly, I'm proud of you, Celeste, for walking away. I whispered my thanks, hung up, and sat in the car as the night pressed against me. The road stretched ahead, empty and dark, but my path was clearer than it had ever been. They hadn't just tried to steal my money. They had tried to steal me, and I wasn't going to let them. Back in Boise, my apartment felt different. The hardwood floors creaked the same way. The city lights spilled across the window as always, but the air seemed cleaner, sharper. For the first time in years, I wasn't dragging their expectations behind me like chains. I threw myself into work, long hours at the firm, projects that left me drained but satisfied. Every deposit into my savings account felt like a small victory, proof that I had built this life myself. I opened a new account, one Mariah would never touch, and each transfer was a brick in the wall I was building around my independence. I started running again. The Boise River Trail became my sanctuary, cold air biting at my lungs, every step shaking off years of guilt. I joined a small running group, people who didn't know my family's story, didn't need to. Their laughter was easy, uncalculated. With them, I was just Celeste, not the responsible daughter, not the scapegoat, just me. Grandpa called every few weeks. His voice was steady, grounding. He never asked me to forgive, never tried to smooth things over. He just listened, told me he was proud, reminded me I wasn't alone. Aunt Martha and Uncle Stephen reached out too, quiet but firm in their support. It wasn't much, but it was enough to remind me that not all family meant betrayal. Meanwhile, word about Idaho Falls traveled faster than any holiday rumor. Grandpa hadn't kept silent after that night. He told the truth, blunt and unvarnished. Aunt Martha told her book club. Uncle Stephen told his neighbors. In a town like that, secrets don't stay buried. Nathan and Mariah's life unraveled first. The bank pressed in. The $250,000 couldn't be hidden anymore. They sold their flashy house at a loss, moved into a cramped apartment on the edge of town. The whispers followed them everywhere, about the casinos, the car, the wife who spied on accounts. Nathan's grin no longer worked. People looked at him and saw a gambler, not a golden child. Mariah kept her job at the bank, but no one trusted her. A loan officer who violated privacy? The scandal clung to her like smoke. Mom and Dad didn't fare better. They'd been pillars in the community. Church events, charity drives, always the smiling hosts. But after the truth spread, smiles turned cold. Invitations stopped coming. At church, people shifted in the pews, polite but distant. Even Uncle Stephen, once Dad's closest confidant, stopped visiting. Mom tried to explain it away at gatherings. It was all a misunderstanding, but no one bought it. The lie was too heavy, the betrayal too plain. And me? I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Their punishment was living inside the walls they'd built themselves, walls made of lies and favoritism and selfishness. Some nights I'd sit by my window, the city buzzing faintly below, and think about them. Dad's glare, Mom's cold dismissal, Nathan's silence, Mariah's smirk. The memories stung, but they didn't hollow me out anymore. They didn't define me. I learned something in Idaho Falls, something sharper than any slap or shouted word. Family isn't a debt. It isn't a chain you drag behind you forever. Sometimes the people closest to you can wound you deepest, not because they're villains, but because they're flawed and desperate. But that doesn't mean you owe them your life. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. I thought walking away would destroy me. Instead, it freed me. Now, when I look at the life I've built, my career, my routines, my peace, I know every part of it is mine. Not theirs, not borrowed, not taken, mine. And if you're listening, wondering whether to keep carrying someone else's burdens, ask yourself this: are they respecting you or are they using you? Sometimes love isn't staying. Sometimes love is leaving. That night in Idaho Falls, drenched in wine and shame, I thought I was losing my family. But the truth is, I found myself. And that's enough.